We are actually going to do a review of a movie for the first time. We're not a movie review channel, obviously, but we're going to be looking at The Children Act. And this is a film that is about the blood transfusion issue and the
Yeah.
rights of children when their parents are indoctrinated. And so we're going to talk about this today. It is a movie that stars Stanley Tucci and Emma
Emma
Thompson.
Thompson. Yes, one of my favorites.
She's amazing. And
Love
there
her.
are some things in this movie that we think Jehovah's Witnesses will try to pick at and dismiss the whole thing. So we're going to get into that and also get into where it nails it. And then when it doesn't nail it, the Jehovah's Witness stuff, it's almost like it's intentional, just so, well, we'll get into that. We'll explain that. But take it away.
So I don't know why I didn't write down what her name is in the movie, but we're just going to call her Emma. Um, the
Fiona
movie,
something?
what is it?
Fiona something?
Yeah, Fiona.
Yeah.
Yep, like Shrek and Fiona. Yep.
Ah, yeah.
Stanley Tucci's no Shrek. If you're
No,
listening, Stanley Tucci, you're beautiful.
he's much more slim.
Quite svelte.
I know we were talking about this the other day, how funny he is in that National Geographic Stanley Tucci in Italy.
I know. I can't wait to see that.
He's so unbelievably full of himself and so pompous, but and somehow it isn't annoying. It's actually it's just funny. That's just his nature. He's like just this little tiny guy. And what is this
Remember,
amuse bouche?
remember him in The Devil Wears Prada?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that was the most Tucci role. That was probably like the closest to himself.
Yeah. In fact, you have to dial it up like 73 times, and then you get real Stanley Tucci. It's pretty
Yeah.
amazing. Anyway, go on. Sorry.
Anyway, so the movie opens with Judge Fiona, and it opens with her presiding over a separate medical case involving children. But it kind of sets the theme for how her outlook is going to carry on throughout the rest of the movie. So in the very beginning of the movie, she is presented with a case about conjoined twins. Neither of them are doing well. They're both in risk of losing their life. So the case is presented to her that if she rules to allow them to be separated, one of them will definitely die and one of them will definitely live. But if they are kept together, the chance of either of them surviving is very slim. So she says, and I just wrote like a couple of notes that stood out to me. She said, one child flourishing is better than two children dead. God has given life and only God can take it away. We're a court of law, not a court of morals. So she does allow for them to be separated. And then you see that she faces the backlash of that decision because, as expected, one of them does die. So that kind of just sets the tone for her judgment style. Like she's pretty no nonsense. Um,
But she's extremely invested because she has emotional
she
impacts from her
is.
decisions. Yeah. So
Yes, absolutely. So then it transitions to the case that involves the Jehovah's Witness child. He is a 17-year-old cancer patient. She is told that he only has about a week to live. He's refusing treatment. He's refusing blood transfusions specifically on the basis of faith. Um, and the hospital is seeking to intervene on his behalf to save his life, despite the parents' wishes to abstain from blood.
right, and this is where it cut in about 20. I think, 22 minutes and 13 seconds. It's on my screen right there, where an HLC elder walks in, marches into the hospital, and so I'm not going to do spoilers here because I want you to be still able to watch this movie and have fresh stuff coming at you. But have a look at that actor playing the HLC Hospital Liaison Committee elder, walking in, marching in, handing his jacket to some employee, like a nurse, as if he runs the place. The HLC guys think that they know better than doctors, and they're always just unbelievably arrogant. I think this movie nailed this elder. Um,
Oh
well,
yeah.
oh, it's perfect. Immediately I was like, "There's that elder." Good job, guys.
So, and I like how they kind of show like different newspaper headlines that just kind of add to like the urgency. One of the newspaper headlines says like race to save JW teen. So, I mean, it kind of gives you like a sense that this is a more high profile case that she's dealing with. So they talk about like the boy's condition and how blood is only part of the treatment. They're not saying that blood is the answer to everything. Like he needs lots of different medications and therapies and things like that. But blood is a critical part because he needs something to stimulate his own bone marrow, basically.
Yeah. So I noticed they got into the Kingdom Hall too. They had the shot of the Kingdom Hall. There were
Hmm.
watch when you watch the movie, watch for the inaccuracies on the interior of the Kingdom Hall. I think they're there for a reason. Maybe they just got it wrong because none of them have ever been in one. But it's sort of right. But there's a couple things. We'll look in the background and you'll see them. Yeah, that's not what we have in Kingdom Halls. But if you look closely at them, they advance the story and explain the general vibe and feelings and points of view and expressions that Jehovah's Witnesses actually feel. Because obviously, you can't have just everybody talking at the mic saying Jehovah's Witnessy things for their brief shot in the Kingdom Hall. So I think they got it done. That was reasonable. It's funny. It was inaccurate, but we were talking about this that I think Jehovah's Witnesses, if they watched the movie, they might watch the first little bit of the movie and see the interior of the Kingdom Hall is inaccurate, and then this is just going to be a dumb smear
This
campaign,
is
and it's not.
Hollywood.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
Hollywood. They hate us. No, they don't. It's actually very accurate, and any things that they change, which we'll get into more, are just for being clear for the story, and it actually makes it more accurate without having to, film an entire Kingdom Hall meeting to get the picture.
Yeah, or give endless backstory.
Right.
Yeah, there was a couple little things, just little wordings about like the governing body that witnesses probably wouldn't use just in their normal conversation.
Yeah.
But even though the wording was wrong, the essence of what they were saying was, like you said, just spot on.
Right. Like the expression, we live in the truth. You don't quite say it that way. You'd say, oh, they're in the truth, or are they in the truth? But you don't say we live in the truth. For some reason, you just don't quite structure it that way within, it's like, okay,
Which is
fine.
just semantics. I mean, it's the same
Forgive. Yeah,
thing,
forgive.
you
It's
know.
exactly the same thing. Nothing was deceitful about Jehovah's. I never saw anything about Jehovah's Witnesses and thought that's not how they are in spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when she's going back and forth in the early part of the case, she is asking one of the attorneys, what knowledge does he have about what his manner of death would be without treatment? And they're like, none at all. Like he has no idea like what he's
In
facing.
for.
Like
Yeah.
to him, it's just black and white, like live or die. He doesn't understand even like the agony that he's
Mhm.
going to be going through if he stays on this course.
Right.
And then she asks the lawyer, he's almost an adult, but not quite an adult. Has he been able to express his personal views intelligently? And the attorney says, his views are his parents' views. His objections to blood transfusions are the doctrine of a religious cult for which he's likely to become a pointless martyr. We don't we don't commonly use the term martyr. Well, I say we. Jehovah's Witnesses don't commonly use the
Right.
term martyr,
Right.
but that's it. I
That's
mean,
it.
in a nutshell, that's what it is.
It calls to mind that early '90s. Everybody knows what it is. The early '90s Awake or Watchtower that had all
With
the
the
youths
kids.
who died. It was just a bunch of martyred children who didn't
Yeah.
need to die, many of whom would still be alive now. It was
Yes.
horrible. Um, that did bring me to uh, this other thing that one of the lawyers asked the dad. He's like, "Well, how do you love your son?" And he asked him like how would you feel if he died? He said, "I'd be grief stricken." And I got to thinking, why would someone who's one of Jehovah's Witnesses be grief stricken if their son dies? That person no longer has to live through Armageddon. They get a
Mm,
fast pass, like you paid the extra at Disney, and you get a fast pass to the paradise. Also, according to the governing body, Stephen Lett specifically, we are in the last part of the last day. So what? You're not going to see him until next Thursday? Why are you upset? And I think that the
right.
fact that they do like we've said before, they do try to block the grieving process and say, like that man
Absolutely.
told your dad when he said, grieve appropriately,
Modestly. Yeah.
modestly. That's what it was. Thank you. And uh, so we see that, but in reality, you're devastated when your mom dies, your dad dies, or your son dies. Your son, your
Sure.
daughter, particularly, must be devastated. And the fact that Jehovah's Witnesses still are devastated, that they are grief stricken, as that father in the movie accurately says he would be, that shows it. There's some part of their brain that goes, I don't think this is really, really, really real. It's not like my son just got went on a trip for 3 months and he'll be right back. We're bummed that he's not going to be around. We know he's dead.
Right.
We know it's the end of him on some level, and that there is, and there's just that part of your brain that just knows that it's all, what's the non-swear version? Hogwash.
Well, and at one point it shows the parent's attorney almost like grasping at straws. He was saying like, blood transfusions aren't foolproof. They come with their own risks. There's the risk of HIV or malaria or Lyme disease.
Yeah.
And of course, the other attorney is like, all the blood is screened. I mean, it's all,
Stop it, dum dum.
yeah, it's tested before we give it to someone. But so it was almost just like, I'm just grasping at straws. Just anything I can hang on to, I'm going to throw
Hmm.
out there as this argument.
It was interesting though that I noticed the spot when they got into the room with the boy. Again, I'm trying not to give away interesting parts of the plot, but they had they have an immunocompromised kid, and they have a bunch of people going in. The elders, they all have like plastic smocks on, but no masks. So that does no good whatsoever. So you can say, hey, this movie is getting it all wrong. No, the movie is showing their faces without masks. They'd all have N95 masks on
Yeah.
if they're going in to visit. And of course, they wouldn't be anybody unnecessary going into the visit there. There wouldn't be some group of elders marching in to guard them against blood transfusions, because they wouldn't be allowed in there, but they'd still be on the outside door. So the fact that they show this medical inaccuracy, and I think quite intentionally, is because they need to show their face. They need to see their
Still a
faces for
movie. Yeah.
them to connect, for the scene to play right, so that you can understand where everybody's coming from. You can't have big old masks on everybody. And the same thing, I think that if you are one of Jehovah's Witnesses watching this, or a former JW, I think we need to give this movie a little pass on things like that, because they're doing things intentionally so that it plays right on a movie. And that's an example where there's no religious motivation for them to eliminate the masks. So we know it's not that motivation, but whenever it goes over to JWs and it doesn't quite say something right, or it's just trying to make the story make sense. And I think that's important to identify. And hopefully Jehovah's Witnesses who watch this kind of make that connection. However, I think if I had been a JW, like if I watched this when I was fully indoctrinated, I would have gone, nah, get out of here. This isn't accurate,
Oh,
and I would have
sure.
dismissed it. Even though later on the movie absolutely sticks the landing perfectly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a definitely a plot twist later in the film. They make a big point about saying things like, he's so mature for his age. He knows his own mind. This is his choice. It's his free will choice, on and on and on. That's repeated when they're trying to
Right.
um to argue for his ability to choose. So the lawyer is asking the dad, what are the consequences if he did choose the blood? And trying to get the dad to like fess up to the shunning policies. And so eventually the dad does say, there's consequences. So the lawyer said, he's scared of being shunned. Isn't that the term that you use? The only world he knows would turn its back on him for preferring to live than a terrible death. Does that sound like free choice? And when we studied that awake that we talked about, and we've talked about it in other episodes, I just I kept thinking about that. No JW kid, if you're really in it, if you're really devout or if you have very devout parents, no JW kid wants to let their parents down.
Yeah.
So it's one thing for a kid that's, 10, 11, 12 to say, "Well, I don't want blood," but they're mentally just not developed enough yet to say, "I would prefer a grueling, horrible, excruciating death than to let my parents down."
Right.
Like, no kid understands the gravity of what they're choosing.
No. And you made a very good point just a bit ago that it isn't just whereas the magazines always say, and they passed away and now they'll be resurrected. It isn't just that. It can be sometimes just falling asleep. At other times, it can be a grueling death,
Yeah,
and they don't ever share that detail that somebody was choking on their own blood for the last 5 hours of their life.
yeah,
Horrors that can be visited upon children and that are currently being visited upon children because of this stupid organization.
yeah. So, I don't know, it's like I don't wanna tell too much,
No, I know. I
but I
did.
also
Yeah, I agree with you there. There was the one thing. It struck me that and there is a twist later on. We'll let you guys watch it if you want, and it's very interesting. But it was interesting. I thought there's a note here. Let me see if this makes sense. What does it matter if you take the blood to save your life? We will take your world away from you if you don't comply with the governing body. So it's a weird corner that they back children into. You're 15 years old. All your friends are looking on, kind of like you were saying, is he going to do the brave thing and the moral thing? Oh, he did.
sure.
What's your life like when you get back home as a kid in the congregation and everybody knows you took a blood transfusion? I mean, there was so much shame attached to it that I remember one girl that I liked when I was like 17. She was 17 as well. And her mom said, well, I mean, you know something about her. And I was like, okay. Well, when she was a baby, she had a blood transfusion. And I even then I was like, "Who cares?" I mean, it wasn't her
And
choice.
yeah, she's
Yeah,
alive,
she's
right?
alive right now, and it wasn't, "You need to know something about her, she has an ongoing medical condition." It was, "She had a blood transfusion when she was a baby." And that
She's ruined, a
she's
ruined
ruined.
woman.
Yeah, she's somehow soiled now was the implication. And even as an indoctrinated 17-year-old who'd been baptized for, what is it, 3 years, I think it was, I was like, "What?" Um,
Hold on,
Very strange.
you're frozen.
We've been having some little spots where we stop for a second.
Okay. You said even as an indoctrinated 17.
I think it recorded it, but yeah, then even as an indoctrinated 17-year-old, I was like, "What? That's ridiculous. Who cares?" But then, how does that affect, a young woman who's 17 years old, and her mom is like telling other people, "Yeah, she's had a blood transfusion. She's kind of spoiled." Ugh. You know,
Damaged goods.
that's the implication that you're spoiled somehow by that, whether you chose to do it. And this struck me as that was the real trick, that it isn't real. The organization's power is only as real as we give it, because even if your whole family shuns you, as ours have, you can go out and rebuild and find new chosen family. So
Yeah.
not only is and in that case, it's better because they're people who have chosen to be around you. And this is not what's in the movie. This is just what my realizations were from the movie,
Yeah.
that the organization's power is so fake. They try to get children to martyr themselves to get their parents reindoctrinated or any other siblings recommitted and all that sunk cost. And then they well, it was at this point that we had some technical issues, but you can see where we're going with this. This film really does shed a lot of light on the absolute horrors that children of Jehovah's Witnesses are experiencing. And it, even though it has some details that don't quite match what the organization says or the way they express something, this movie actually does express and kind of distill down the actual reality of Jehovah's Witnesses fighting these problems in court, these legal matters, because of their decision to impose their beliefs on their children. This has been the Ex Jehovah's Witness podcast, Difficult Childhood, and we'll be back next week with something completely different.